So we're back. I've done 12 rows. There's the knit. I know it's hard to see in this light, but that is the knit for the straight. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap out my yarn color. See how I just push it down? And I'm going to add the white for the top, just because I want to have a different color for the top. You don't have to do this, but it gives it a little nice kind of effect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my white yarn here, and what I do, I leave enough on the end so I can tie it off. So I'm going to cut just enough, like I'm going to cut it so I can tie it. I always give a little extra. Okay, I'm just cutting it there. You can just see where I cut it. And put those safely out of the way. Now I've got this end sticking here where the peg is where we started. We always end up on that last peg. That tells you when it's time to start a new row. So I'm going to just take my other yarn and I'm going to do a basic knot. I'm going to put it on the inside of this loom. So I'm going to take this. It's a little hard to do, but what I do, just make a knot. And just take your time. Like I say, take your time. Everything gets done in time. Just slowly do it. Don't worry too much about it. Pull it down, make sure it's looping. See, even I still have issues doing this. Just take a little time, hold the string, tighten it a little bit. I use my finger and I'll pull a little bit just to bring it in close to that peg, as close as I possibly can. Okay, so I've got that in real close there. Now I'm just going to tie that off, and again, take your time doing this. Just tighten that knot, make sure it's still as close as you can get it. Sometimes it's a little bit of adjusting. Give it a little pull, not too hard. Make sure it's good. Make sure they're tight. This type of yarn, it can break very easily. It's not a sturdy yarn, it's a soft yarn. As you can see, it's a woven yarn. So, and it's kind of fluffy when it breaks. And then you're just going to take your scissors and you're going to cut the two ends off, not your main line, but the two ends. So just make sure you cut that relatively close. Don't have to worry too much, just close enough, because that's going to be on the inside. You can add that to your extra pile. And then we're going to do the top. You know, you can use 3 or 4 rows. I'm just double checking that. And once again, don't worry about these 2 pieces, because you can push them on the inside. So you're going to wrap again. See how that came on the outside? Try to maybe pull the yarn over a bit. Sometimes you can't avoid that. And just keep knitting. So you take the yarn and do your half, you wrap, and you knit. Take the yellow, bring it over top. See how it pulled that knot back in there? That's a terrible video. I do apologize. The knot is back in here now. And continue to U-wrap. Take your yellow and bring it over. Take the yellow, bring it over. Take your time. Take the yellow, bring it over. Take the yellow, underneath, pull it over. Take the yellow, underneath, pull it over. I sometimes push it down a little bit too. I just use the tool, so it's a little easier on my hands. Okay, so just keep doing that, and this new row will now be incorporated into your pumpkin and just push it down. Push it down, push it down. Okay, so I'm back. So I finished the body and the top. You can see the white in there. And now what we have to do is we have to close things off. I'm going to close the bottom off here. And if you've left a long enough piece of yarn, you can usually just take your needle and thread it through these. Do you see these loops on the end? And then just pull it like a drawstring. You can thread it through these little loops and pull it closed to make sure it closes. So I don't know if I left enough, but anyhow, I can certainly try and see if that works. So let's give this a shot. I'm going to put this on. And if not, you can just take another string of the same color, loop it through your needle, through the little eye, and begin that process. Make sure it's long enough. Actually, I'm just going to tie this off. I'm just going to tighten that knot on the end, and then I can trim it and put it on the inside. What I'll do is I'll take a good size piece of yarn. That way I know for sure I've got enough. Grabbing my scissors there. Nice long piece. Rather be safe than sorry. So got a nice long piece here. Okay. And we'll thread it through and tie it off. So with the needle, you just want to put it through that eye. You kind of gotta just take your time doing that. Watch it, give it a little pull. Sometimes you can use your little, if you have another needle to help, and once it's through, it's like that. Right? So what we do is we're going to take this from there. You see the loops? We're going to put it through the loops. See the loop there? There's a loop right there. See that loop? The outside loop? There. And just see the outside loop there? See how I'm just putting it through the outside loop? You see that? Twisting it and making it just go through the loop. And you'll see the loop. Right? Each one is there. And just go through each loop. You can pull it a little bit. Right? It's like a drawstring. Find your next loop. Just go through. Just like that. Until you get back to the first loop. See? Just going through each loop, making sure you're grabbing each loop. Right? And just make sure it's going through that hole. Going through that loop there. Give it a little tug. And now you're back to that first loop. I just like to put it through that first loop again. So now it's through. And if you want, you can trim this other piece of string down or just tuck it on the inside. Doesn't matter. I'm probably just going to tuck it on the inside. Put it on the inside. Just put it through the top and give it a little pull. You can turn this inside out, but it's not necessary. Now that's on the inside. Okay, and you see, you can just tighten it. See how that tightened up there? Just give it a little tug on both sides. And it's tight now, right? It's tight. Then what you can do is just do a little knot. Just to secure it. Or you can take it on the inside. Just give it a little knot. It won't be too noticeable. See how it goes right in there? Right? Little knot. It's going to be sitting most of the time. Do a little knot. Right? Just like that. Then what I do is I take these two pieces and I take them both inside. So I'll take the first one where that knot was, just put it right in the middle where you closed it. There's a little hole and pull it through. And it'll come right through. You see? It'll come right through. There's the needle. Pull it through. And you can take that thread off and then grab your other thread. Do the same thing. Thread it on. See, like that. Just grab it carefully. Make sure it's threaded on, just like that. And once again, hold the thread and then through that top. And you'll find that little hole again. And it'll go right through. There we go. See, there's the needle coming through. There it is. Okay. So now you have, and you can just, using your thumb, push it, your fingers, push it through. Now that's the inside. Okay? And you can just knot these off on the inside. Or better yet, you could use them for doing the sides. Doesn't matter. So I just tend to take them and I knot them off. Just give it a little gentle tug. I take one thread, knot two, like that, and tie it off. Take the thread, give it two good pulls, like that. And since we're not going to see it, sometimes I will tuck it away. I'll thread it through the knits. But this you can just trim it off a little bit. You don't really need to use this. It's going to be on the inside. Just give it a little trim. So now you do have extra yarn. Now I always like to save my extra yarn. You never know what little projects might come up that you can use it. Okay, push it back out. And do you see? There is, you see the knits? Oh, see? And I'm just giving a little push on the inside, just to stretch it a little bit. See that? And you can tell the, sorry, you can tell the knits. You can tell the knits by, you can count. Do you see these little rows? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's how you count how many rows you have on the outside. Now I've done the top here. I used 5 rows of the U-wrap. And what we're going to do now, first of all, is we're going to stuff it with the stuffing. So you don't want to use too much stuffing. You don't want to overstuff it because it'll start spilling out. So grab a little bit of stuffing. I always grab more than too much. Just put it to your side, out of the way. Take it and just kind of push it in there. Right? See how I'm pushing that in there? See? Just push it in. Push it down to the bottom. Push it down to the bottom. We'll get a rounder shape as this finishes. Take a little more. It looks almost like a corn on the cob. I guess you could make a corn on the cob using this type of a stitch. It would just be a little bit longer, and then you just have to add on a little end. All right? This we can shape later. I just tend to push it, play with it, handle it a little bit. And you can see it's a nice tight. Now do you see the top's getting a little fuller there? I'm going to put this last bit in. Just going to shove it in there. Should be enough because we're going to tighten this. And see how that's all in there now? And it's going to become round when we sew it off and give it the sections. So I'm just making sure it's in there. Now what you're going to do, you finish that last top. And now what you do is you take this, you wrap it about 1 and a little bit. Do you see how I wrapped it about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pegs? I always like a little extra. And you're going to snip that because what you're going to do is you're going to cast off. You're going to do a cast off, but it's more a draw cast off is what it's called. You're doing a draw cast off where you're going to not knit, but you're going to take your needle like you did on the bottom. This time you're using the thread already on the top, and then you're going to thread it on. Like I did with that before. And then pull that through. Make sure you leave a little bit at the top. I'm working in close quarters here. Okay, so you leave a little end. Okay, now what you do, you're at your 12th peg. There's your little knob. My other one doesn't have the knob, so that smaller one with the, I'll show you. If you can see, it doesn't have anywhere on it a knob, so it makes it a little difficult. And as you can see, let me try to show you. Do you see? There's 3 pegs, almost 3, yeah, 3 pegs to every 2 pegs. So this is a smaller, it's a little harder to work with, especially if you have issues with your hands or you're a little clumsy, but we won't worry about that. So what we're going to do now, taking this thread, just make sure it's out of the way, and your needle. Now do you see here? See this little loop? We're going to go underneath. See along that groove? You're going to put it under the groove, and you're going to pull that thread through. Just don't make a knot, but make sure you're not knotting it. So don't knot it. Like that would be a knot what I was doing. See how it's loose? Give it a little pull. Okay? And again, same thing. Take it, needle, where that groove is, put the needle through. Just take your time. Okay? Pull it through. Okay, the next one. And sometimes you might get caught in the thread on the peg. Just pull the needle out. Make sure you're, and again, make sure you're not making a knot. What you can do is at a certain point you can take these pegs off if you want, because they're now threaded. Right? I just like to go as far as I can. So again, same thing. Take the needle, thread it through. You can even go to the other side. Whatever is comfortable for you works. Okay? Take the needle through, thread it through. Keep doing that. If you find you're running out of thread, you can start taking them off the pegs. Just don't take them off the pegs you have not put the yarn through, because you will lose the loop and then you have to go and find it again. So, same thing. Never fun when that happens. Trust me, I've done it. It's never fun, but it is all in the learning. Okay, we are almost to the last loop. I just pull that up a little bit. You see I'm getting less on the end, so I want to watch that. You've got one more here, and again, I do the same thing. Now we're back to peg 12. Here's peg 1. I just put it through peg 1 one more time. That just makes it a more seamless. Now, you can just pull them off using your thumb, or you can use the needle just to gently, see how I did that? Just gently underneath, and it comes right off. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. I prefer to use just my fingers most of the time. It's a little quicker for me. See how that's just coming off? And pull that through the top. That is now done. We can put that away. And make sure you're shoving this down. Okay. Make sure you get that stuffing down enough. Okay. There. I normally tend to pull on it, but now what you're going to do, you see where the thread finished? You've got them all. Do you see how I'm gently pulling on that? And you can just take your time, Do you see how that closed off? Just give it a gentle tug. This will look a little more round when you start adding your sections in. Okay, so now you've got the top. Okay, and what you can do to do the sections, now we did 12, so it just depends how many sections you want. I mean, again, you can take total artistic license and make it your own. All right, so that is done. What we'll do next is we're going to create the stem. And there's two ways to do it. If you want a tighter stem, you can macrame, do a macrame, or you can use that little machine, that little gadget. Me, I'm probably just going to, I guess it doesn't really matter. Let's take the gadget. I can actually show you how this gadget works. So there's the gadget. Okay, if you want to use yellow or a different color, or if you just want to use the white, doesn't matter, it's all good. I'm just going to use the white. So this is a little more difficult to do. So you've got your thread here. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. And what happens is this is going to go down like that. So this has to go up on the top. See how I looped it through there? And then you're going to wrap it. Like you have to wrap it like you would be wrapping on. So like that. Wrap that. Wrap around. Like you want to wrap around. Make sure you get it right. See how you're wrapping around? See, you're going from the back to that, like that. Okay? And then push it down. So you've got that wrapped on. Okay? And just kind of hold it there. Get your needle. This takes a little effort just for the first little bit. Now what you're going to do is put that around it. And you see how you have to kind of hold on to it. Then you got these two. You're going to gently and carefully take that bottom and wrap it, and it may look a little funny. Give it a little tug. That's what it's going to do. Give it a little tug and pull. So it's there. Then, again, move that little thingy around the top. See how it rotates? Take this and put it around. Do you see that? See how I did that? Turn it. Okay. Don't go off. Wrap it around the top. Take this bottom and put it over like that. And wrap it again. This you can shove on the inside. You don't need that. You can just shove it in there. Get it out of the way. Now it's out of the way. See how it's in the bottom there? There, it's in the bottom. Okay, so you've done your first row. You're over here. And again, you're just going to basically do that same thing. You're going to wrap it around. Okay, wrap it around. And then do a little wrap. Okay, do a little wrap. Like you don't have to put it over this thing, but if you do put it over this thing, it just goes in like that, right? And it snugs in there. And then you can just turn, right? Turn it. You might need to hold it. You might need to use your full hand to tighten, and then you do your knit. And again, just turn and do a knit. Hopefully you can see this. Right, turn it. See how I turn it? And it just almost automatically goes on the top. And then wrap it around like that. Take your time. Just turn it. Doesn't have to be too tight. wrap it around. Make sure your wool is not tightening up on you. Loosen a little more. See how I'm doing that? Just make sure you're taking the bottom stitch. And take your time. Just wrap it over. Thinner yarn, it's a little easier to do. And I also use my thumb as a bit of a guide when I'm doing this, just to keep it, because I don't trust myself. What'll happen is I'll get too carried away, not pay attention, and then next thing my stitch is off, and that's the worst thing that happens to me, is the stitch comes off and I lose it. I am so sorry about the camera work here. I'm using my cell phone to do this. So just keep doing this. Wrap it. It's a little hard to show and do the film without a good setup. I will set this up better so I don't have to worry about the camera. It'll be stabilized and you'll be able to see. I'm reaching around the camera, so it's a little awkward for me. But as you can see on the inside, I don't know if you can see that. Do you see it's starting to come through? There's a little thing there. Okay, I'll be back when I'm finished the length desired. Alright, so we're back, and what we're going to do now is what we did before when we cast off with the main body. Simply for these 3 pegs, putting it through and putting the loop through on the 3. And then we'll take it off and then we can tighten it up. There's another way you can do it, which is basically taking the stitching or the stitches from one peg to the next. That's a different way to cast off, but that's what we're going to do now. So just make sure you've got the thread. You're going to go hold it because it might come up, and it's a little awkward, but once you get it through, it'll go through. See, it's gone through there. Just give it a little tug. And again, make sure you leave enough of your thread so you can draw it tight. And we can use that thread to loop it inside the project on the pumpkin and tighten it up. Okay, I have one more to go. You see it's a little awkward. Maybe I'm just a little awkward. But anyhow, no matter. I've done 3, and just go back to that main one where you started. You can see where you started and loop it through one more time. Give it a little tug, you're through, and now you can take it off the loops without worrying that the stitches will all come off, because they won't. You just pull it off gently, take that, you're done with that. And then it's just a matter of pulling it tight. And see? The bottom you can do the same thing, just give it a little tug. See how it pulls tight? So now you've got your stem. See that? Okay, and like it's a little stretchy, but what we're going to do now is we're going to join that onto your main body. So what you want to do, you've still got this needle, you're going to push it right through the top in the middle and pull it all the way through the stuffing, all the way down through the stuffing, and make sure it's coming through on the bottom and come out on the bottom side. Give it a little bit of, just take your time. Sometimes this is not as easy as it looks. Or you can just simply put it through the top too. Sometimes that works just as good. Take it, and you can always loosen this top up too, because you haven't tightened it off quite yet. So just simply loosen the top a little bit. See how I'm loosening that up? So that there's a hole again. You can loosen it up. You haven't tied it off yet. And you can stuff it in there. Pull it in there and stuff it in there. See that? See how I stuff that in there? Stuff it in there. And then give it a little yank. Right? A couple things. And then what you can do is just thread it back through. Different way. And you can just thread it back through. You can go to the other side. See that? Give it a pull. You're just anchoring that in there so it's secure. Do that and just move your strings out of the way. Right? You're just going along here. No one will notice. It'll be threaded into it, no worries. You can actually even go into the top if you want. And just thread up into the top. Right? Go using your stitches. Thread through the stitches. Right? Just along the seam. And then just thread through the top. Like that. And give it a pull. Right? Once it's pulled, you can push this in if you want. And then what you're going to do is you're going to be tying it off. Tightening it. You're going to be doing a knot. So what I'd like to do is I'll take the first loop on the top and push it through like that, and just find another loop and push and go through that loop, not through the draw but through the loop. Give it a pull. Okay, make sure that's all done like it should be, like that. Yeah, it's all good. And then you can tighten it. Make sure it's nice and tight. Right. Take your loops, tie them together. A little knot like this won't be very visible. It'll blend in. See how that's blending in real nice? Right, just like that. A little knot. That's all you need. There. Right, there's a little knot. And then what you can do with these ends is you can just use them. If you want white going down, you can use the white ones, or you can take a piece of yellow. If you use the white, you might see a little bit of white when you pull it tight, but that's not an issue with me. It just adds a little bit of color. So take one of these loops, thread it again. Okay. And then you're just going to pull it. See these sections? You're going to pull this section down, right? And you're going to go up the middle. And you might need to push and pull a little bit, but go up the middle. And then it'll come up to the top there. Right? You see how it'll come up to the top. Just keep your fingers pushing a little bit. It'll come up to the top. Give it a little push. Give it a little pull. And then, as you can see how that tightens up there? It's going to tighten up. See how that tightens up on that end? It'll tighten up on that end if it's done right. And give that a pull. See how that's tightening it up now? It's giving it a little bit of a section. Right. Again, you're going to take it down. You got a couple of, or you can just actually basically take this down too. There's a couple options. Take it to your next section. You can go straight over if you want, and then just pull it so that it's going to make it. Or you don't even have to do this. It's totally up to you. Yeah. Make sure it's not too, because in the end it'll all kind of balance when you put it through the next section. Right. So you're just going to go through the top again. Just follow that to the next section. And just give it a little tug. So it's on that end. And then just follow it down. And then you're going to go back through the bottom again. Pull it back up. So it'll come up to the top again. Try to get it to the top. Sometimes it likes to be difficult. You can usually feel the needle where it is and put it through. See, there's the needle. Pull it through. There we go. Just place it where you want. Give it a little tug. A little tug. See that? Got a little bit of definition. In fact, you don't even need the definition. You can just make it to look like you need that definition. Right? And you can just knot this off if it's not long enough. Yeah, just put it through. Make sure that comes through that loose end. And then just put it through the loop. Give it a little tug. Let's knot it off. And then all you can do now is just follow it here. Just follow through. And then give it a pull, and then you can cut it. So you hide it in the knitting that you've done. And then cut. And you take the other string that you have, give it a little tug. You're going to loop that on the needle. And just do that for the rest of the project. If you want 2 more sections, you can do that. Just depends. You can do each section. So we're back with just the final. Now I did make it a little too big, the stem, so it's a little floppy, but that's okay. I just cut the end off there. And as you can see, it's you have to play with it a little bit just to give it a little bit of shape. Make sure it's looking like it should. All up to the interpretation, but there it is. There she is. Now do a little more shaping on this one. This is my first project, so next time it'll be a little better, but that's the gist of it. And there's your stem, there's the pumpkin, and this was the fluff I was talking about regarding this type of wool, so it makes it a little more difficult to use and to work with, this type of wool, because it is quite prone to breaking, so you have to be careful with this type of wool. It's a nice wool, but not always ideal when working with projects like this. Yeah, just squishing it a little bit and trying to shape it. And all I did at the end was I just tucked the stuff inside, just so that it's hidden away. But as you can see, as I play with it and shape it, it starts to look a little more like a pumpkin. Yeah, I haven't done one of these in quite some time, but I wanted to start with that. You could even carefully just play with that so it looks a little more round, but pumpkins aren't always supposed to be round. There, that's a little better. They're supposed to be weird, beautiful, odd shapes. Okay, so there's the thumb again. There is my pumpkin with a very long stem. A little guy. Kind of cute. You get the basic idea. And that was my first project for the channel. There it is. Move this fluff away. There you go. Little pumpkin. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining and watching, and I will be back with another one very soon. If you have any comments, don't forget to leave a comment. Hit that like and hit that notification button if it's on there. And it'll update you when I put new videos up, whether it's a project or just something I've knitted. I will certainly do that. And God bless. Blessings to everybody. And come back for another project. And let me know if there's anything you would like me to show you. Basic stitches, like I say, U-wraps, E-stitches, the flat stitch. There's different types of stitches that you can do. And you can create some lovely things. There's lots of YouTube channels up there that have knitting for Loom. Check them out and leave me a comment. All right. Blessings, everybody.